You ready? Okay. If you're bracing yourself for holiday gatherings with questions like, how's that writing thing going? And when are you going to publish that book? Then writer friends, today's post is for your friends and family. Please share with whomever you think would benefit. Although if you're a writer wanting to know more about the process of publishing, please do also stay. The steps in this post are also summarized in infographic form, which you can find on my website, which I will link below, if you want visual aids when discussing this around the dinner table. The full written version of this post also can be found on my Substack, which also linked below. So, dear writers, friend slash family member slash loved one, picture yourself at an upcoming family gathering or social event. Your friend slash family member slash loved one bravely shares with you the amazing accomplishment that they have written a book. You are very impressed. It is very impressive. You enthusiastically say, "That's amazing, you should get it published," while probably thinking that's relatively easy or straightforward. Spoiler alert, it's really not. So the writer in your life would love for you to understand more about how publishing works. Publishing is complicated and often convoluted. It's confusing even to writers making their way through the process. There are several ways to publish books. For today, I'm going to be talking about what's called trade publishing, or also sometimes called traditional publishing, for fictional books. So this is what most people think of when they think publishing. The manuscript goes to a publisher who puts out hardbacks or paperbacks or ebooks out into the world that anyone can go get at Barnes & Noble or Target or Amazon. A whole lot of things have to happen before that though. So let's talk about that process and also why your beloved writer might get kind of sad when asked how this whole publishing thing is going. So, step one, your writer loved one creates a query package. So you might be thinking that an author starts by sending out copies of their manuscript, but instead we start with the publishing equivalent of a job application. So for a job, you might have a cover letter and a resume. Yes. In publishing, you typically have also a cover letter, which is more often called a query letter, a synopsis, so summary of the entire story like you'd find on a Wikipedia page under the heading plot, and the first 5 to 10 pages of the book. That's it. That's all that an author has to catch someone's eye. So then this query package goes to a publisher? Nope. The publishers aren't going to even come into this until step 8. So step 2, the queries are sent to literary agents. So literary agents are professionals who help launch and manage an author's career and represent them in publishing deals and negotiations. So the query package gets sent out to them. And agents get hundreds, if not thousands, of submissions a year. Only a tiny fraction of those will be selected to go on to the next step. So writers can spend years querying and send hundreds of queries across multiple books. If the writer you love has been querying for a long time, be supportive and maybe don't bring it up unless they mention it first. It's an emotionally challenging process. Step 3. Interested agents then can ask to read a partial or full manuscript. So hooray, we've made it to the manuscript, sort of. Based on that query package, an agent can decide if they want to see some or all of the book. And these are referred to as partials, which are generally the first 50 pages, or fulls, which are exactly what it sounds like. Agents request the manuscript for less than 5% of the queries they receive, and many have request rates around 1 to 2%. If the writer in your life has gotten a request, please congratulate them wholeheartedly. That is an amazing accomplishment all on its own. Step 4, an agent makes an offer of representation if they think they could get a publisher to take on the book. So only a small number of manuscripts get those full requests, and only a fraction of those result in an offer. So also note here that I said agents offer if they think they could get publisher interest. Sometimes a book could be really amazing, but an agent doesn't know any editors or publishers who would be interested, or they don't think there's a market for that kind of book right now. Your beloved writer may have a great book, but that doesn't mean they'll immediately get an offer of representation or any offer. It's really hard out there. Sometimes agents will ask for an R&R, which is revise and resubmit. So the agent asks the author to complete revisions on the manuscript before deciding whether to offer representation to them. It's also worth mentioning that R&Rs don't always result in offers. In those cases, even though the author puts in the work, it just doesn't pan out. Step 5, other agents are given the chance to offer when they hear the news. So authors send queries to multiple agents at a time. The exact number varies, but to give you an estimate, an author might have queries out with around 15 to 20 agents at a time. If an author gets an offer, standard practice is to notify all other agents who have their query and give them 2 weeks to respond whether they'd like to also offer representation. Not all authors get multiple offers, and some agents also may not review the query materials or make an offer until they hear someone else is interested and they're under that 2-week time crunch to bump the query manuscript up to the top of their to-read list. Also, some agents just never reply at all. So step 6, an author accepts the offer to have the agent find an editor willing to publish. So good agents have training on how to negotiate deals on behalf of authors. They have industry kind of insider knowledge and connections. They keep up with editors at different publishing houses to know who's looking for what kind of books. It's also worth noting that agents are paid on commission from a publishing deal. So up to and including this step and the next few, they haven't gotten paid yet, but they're basically agreeing to do the work for the author for free at this point because they believe they can find someone to buy this manuscript. And while it definitely has its downsides, the unpaid labor arrangement is normal. Never tell the writer you love to pay an agent for representation. Paying someone will not put them in a better position to get published. It will open them up to scams and frauds. So, step 7. Agents can work with their new client to polish up the book. So some agents are editorial, meaning they help edit at this stage. Some agents prefer only to take on very polished work. Ultimately, an agent wants to make sure that the book is in the best shape possible before it goes out to different publishing houses, because they get one shot at each of those. Step 8, the agent sends the manuscript out on submission to editors at publishing houses. I know you thought this step was going to happen a lot sooner, but here we are. About 80% of the books in the US come from 5 parent publishing companies, which are the big 5. Each of those 5 publishing companies have dozens of imprints, which are like subdivisions that each kind of publish different types of books and each have their own complete, editorial team and staff. If you're curious, I recommend, there's a graphic, which I will link to below, that kind of will give you a sense of the scope and just how massive Big 5 are. With very few exceptions, the editors at Big 5 imprints only accept submissions from agents, not directly from authors. And so that's why getting an agent is a crucial step for people wanting to take this route to publishing. There's also some mid-sized publishers that aren't quite as big as the Big 5, but they do put out great books to a wide audience. So I do want to note that Big 5 publishers aren't the only notable players in the game. Sometimes a book stalls at this stage. Stats on this are really hard to get. One number I've seen estimates something like maybe 60% of first-time authors at this stage will not have their book sell. This is referred to as dying on sub. If the author that you love tells you their book has died on sub, offer them your deepest condolences because this is a heartbreaking time for them. Also remember that this doesn't mean they wrote a bad book, but the profit-driven book industry didn't have a place for that book right now. Step 9, one or more editors offer a deal to publish the book and the agent negotiates the terms. So there are a couple different ways offers can happen, and without getting into too much of the weeds, this can include a single offer, a big offer on the condition that nobody else gets to offer, or a competitive auction. Most big trade publishers will offer an advance. Advance is money paid to the author that they get whether the book sells 5 copies or 500,000 copies. And part of an agent's job is to get the highest advance possible for their author, which in turn gives the publisher incentive to promote the book and earn back their investment. The agent also reviews and negotiates the contract to ensure the terms are in their author's favor as much as possible. Step 10, the author revises their book with editor feedback and guidance. So books go through several different types of editing, and there can be multiple rounds of each type. Big picture things like fixing plot holes or pacing issues fall under what's called developmental edits. And then after that, they move to fine-grained things like sentence structure, word choice, punctuation, so on. Revision is hard work. It often comes with very tight deadlines. If the author in your life is at this stage, they're probably stressed, so maybe bake them some cookies and or offer to take their kids off their hands for a day, or 2, or 20. Step 11. The publisher handles cover design, interior book layout, marketing, and distribution. So authors can give input on some of these decisions, like cover design, but the publisher makes the final decisions. One of the biggest advantages of going this route for publishing is that the publisher also has sales reps who can connect to booksellers and librarians to get the book stocked on as many shelves in as many places as possible. You may possibly have noticed that nowhere in this process have I said that the author pays for anything. In traditional publishing, there is a phrase, money flows to the author. Authors should never have to pay money to be represented by an agent or to have their books published by a legitimate publisher. Costs for things like cover design, marketing, distribution are all covered by the publisher. Publishers who charge authors money are what used to be called vanity presses and are now often called predatory presses because they take advantage of and exploit authors. Don't encourage the author that you love to go to a predatory press. Step 12. The book is published. This is typically 12 to 18 months after the publishing deal is made. This is an excellent time to get your author loved one a cake or take them out to a celebratory dinner. It is also an excellent time to tell every single person you know, so your other friends, family, the cashier at the grocery store, the person behind you in line at Starbucks, to all go buy the book. All right, so let's wrap up. As you can probably tell, this entire process is long and arduous. It can take years. At every single step, the chances of succeeding are very slim. The process requires dedication and talent and a considerable amount of luck. Books published this way typically reach the most readers, and they give the author the highest level of support in those later steps. These deals also generally have that advance money that I mentioned. This path is also typically the most This path is also typically the most challenging route to publishing. It isn't the only path to getting published though, and each path has its own advantages and challenges, and the writer in your life has reasons they're aspiring to one versus another. So I'll be doing separate posts for other paths, including independent or small press publishing, as well as for self-publishing. So if you're interested in those, you can hit subscribe so you know when they come out. If you have questions about anything that I've talked about today or about publishing in general, drop those in the comments. I will do my best to try and answer. Thank you for watching today and for supporting your writer friend / family member / loved one on this journey. All done?